Holding Sefer Mishlei, Perek Chaf, Pasuk Tet Zayin, 16. Lakach bigdo ki arav zar, uve'ad nochriya havlehu. Here he translates this as, take his garment because he stood surety for a stranger. In other words, an individual has become an arev, a guarantor to another individual. He has already advised us that it's not such a good idea to become an arev, a guarantor, to guarantee a loan for someone else. And therefore here it appears that he's giving the go-ahead. He's giving permission. He's telling the lender, go ahead and take his garment. Ki arav zar, because that individual who became an arev, he basically ruined it for himself. He should not have done that. And as a result, go ahead and take his shirt, his garment, uve'ad nochriya havlehu, and hold him in pledge for an alien woman. As we've said various times, it is never a good idea to guarantee a loan if the amount that you're guaranteeing is not something that you're willing to lose. Don't take a chance. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. The individual may run away, not pay, and the one who guaranteed the loan will be stuck with having to pay back that loan. The reason he says over here, lekach bigdo, take his garment, it's similar to an expression in English, to lose the shirt on one's back. In other words, his own shirt, his own garment, he may end up taking that. So lekach, over here he's saying lekach, meaning go ahead and do it. He is guilty for having done that. It's his fault for having guaranteed the loan, and therefore go ahead and grab it to cover the loan. Never a good idea to become involved. There's no such mitzvah, no obligation for one to guarantee, especially if it's an amount that one is not willing to lose. Don't take any chance. Don't assume it's okay, I trust him. It has nothing to do with trust. It also has to do with the mortality of human beings. Let's say the person passes away the next day. Now what? So if it's an amount that you cannot afford to lose, don't lend it, don't guarantee it. You have no such obligation. On the contrary, he's advising us not to get involved in any transaction of this sort. The next pasuk, Arev leish lechem shaker, v'hari malepihu chatzatz. And you see how he translates it. Bread of falsehood is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth will be filled with gravel. Arev leish lechem shaker. The commentaries explain that's talking about situations where something appears to be sweet. Something is very tempting, but one knows in advance that he's going to regret it. In the end, he's going to regret it. In the beginning, it appears sweet, it's pleasant, but it's going to get him into trouble. So he's warning those individuals who are tempted by something which is sweet. Be careful, you know yourself you're going to regret it. At first, it is sweet, but in the end it will be chatzatz. Chatzatz is gravel, little rocks. That's lechem shaker, bread of falsehood. Bread of falsehood is also an expression used for earning one's money in a crooked way. It's bread, it's something that satisfies you, something that one wants, but if it's bread of falsehood, in the end it will bring him trouble, not satisfaction and not happiness. This is a very important point in many areas in life where people at first think that something is worth their time, their while, and in the end it's very disappointing. The reason for that is that the human being has many ta'avot, many desires, and the desires are sweet, even though he knows that this is going to get him into trouble. The typical example is one who wants to lose some weight, who's on a diet, and he's tempted by something very, very sweet, and he knows that if he eats it, not only will he fail his diet, but he's going to get himself into more trouble. Nevertheless, he's tempted. What should therefore one do is really consider his actions before he does anything, if he knows in advance that this could bring him some trouble. The next pasuk, מחשבות בעצה תיכון ותחבולות עשה מלחמה. It is a good idea for one to plan, seeking the advice of others. In this way, his plans will be established. In other words, he will be able to carry them out. وبتحبولات, and with strategies wage war. There's two parts to this pasuk. Rabbis tell us, Adam karov le'atzmo. Man is biased to himself. He thinks he's right. He would rather not have to seek the advice of others and do things on his own. He always thinks he knows better. So Shlomo Melech tells us, Machshavot be'etzat ikon, when you are planning something of great importance, you're always better off be'etzah. Be'etzah meaning to seek the advice, to talk it over with others. Anything which is very important. In this way, tikon, what you're planning has a better chance of coming about, of being established, rather than something going wrong. In this way, you can fine-tune, you can seek clarification, you can see what is wrong and what needs to be perfected. One should never rely. Rabbis tell us, in other words, binatcha al tisha'en. Never rely on your own understanding. You have nothing to lose by asking. There's an expression in Yiddish. You should ask everybody in the world. Seek their advice. Make up your own mind later. But to ask doesn't cost any money. Ask, but ask people who know, who have experience. You just don't want to ask everybody, otherwise you're going to get even more confused. Machshavot be'etzat ikon, seek the advice of many. In this way, your plan will become established. In other words, you will be able to carry it out. Ubetachbolot aseh milchama, and when you're waging war, you have to have strategy. In some ways, this is a continuation of what he just said. When it comes to war, you cannot just fight without a plan. You have to fight with a strategy. And a strategy requires a lot of thinking and perhaps a lot of input from those who are well versed in waging war. Don't just do it without thinking about it. When it comes to war, you have to have a strategy. Commentaries tell us that this is also talking about the milchama with the Yetzer Hara, the ultimate war, the ultimate battle that we do with the Yetzer Hara on a daily basis. This requires strategy. Part of the strategy is teshuvah, ta'anit, and tefillah. Praying, fasting, continuous teshuvah in order to put the Yetzer Hara off guard. That's called tahbulot. That's a strategy. The Yetzer Hara is a foe, is to be considered an enemy, and he's there every day from the moment we wake up. And it requires strategy to defeat him. One cannot just go about living his life assuming that everything will be okay, and that if he was a tzaddik yesterday, he will continue to be a tzaddik tomorrow. Rabbis tell us that every day the Yetzer Hara comes up with other ideas, other ways of tempting us, of trying to bring us down, of misleading us, and it requires strategy. Strategy meaning a plan of action, how to succeed against this formidable, powerful foe. That has to be done with tahbulot. Commentaries say that even though we seek the advice of others, you may have shishim yoatzim, you may have 60 advisors. Nevertheless, follow your own advice too. Don't forget about your own way of thinking, your own plan of action. Why? Why is our own plan more important or as important as everybody else's? So the commentaries explain, when one wages war, or when one wants to do something, he's more eager to do it than anybody else. It's his plan, it's his war, it's something that he wants to accomplish. He will be putting in much more effort, he will care much more about the project than somebody else. So even though all the advice in the world is good, you don't want to ignore your own plan, your own intuition, your own plan of action, because that may be important too. So it's important to seek the advice, but don't ignore what your own mind tells you. On the other hand, don't just rely on your own understanding, because you may be wrong. One may be all excited in doing something. This is great, this is right, I'm going to do it, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to do that. Because of the excitement in wanting to pursue and wanting to carry out what we very much love, we may not be able to see the faults in our own ideas. Because man is biased to his own way of thinking. So take it easy, reflect upon it, think about it, but if you want to be sure, if you want the machshava to be tikkon, to be established, to come out just right, then talk it over with those who perhaps are more knowledgeable and more experienced, and then you have a better chance. And this, of course, can be said about just about any area in life, whether it's business, whether it's shidduchim, whether it's to perform an operation. We always want to have a second or third opinion, right? We ask 3 doctors before we do something which is questionable, and especially if it's risky. You want to take a chance. You want to hope for a consensus, and that will allow you to feel more confident about what you're about to do. Next pasuk, Gole sod holech rachil ulefoteh sefatav lo tit'arav. Here he talks about not mingling with 3 individuals, and what they all 3 have in common is they have a big mouth. One of them is Gole sod, an individual who reveals secrets. He's very talkative. He just talks about everything he overhears or that he's told. You don't want to talk to him about secrets that you may have. Or one who's olech rachil, one who gossips. He gossips, so he's a big talker. Urfoteh sefatav, or with one who entices with his lips. It's just another way of describing an individual who's always opening up his mouth without thinking before he says what he says. So lo tit'arav, you don't want to mingle with them. You don't want to say anything to them that may be repeated later on, that you don't want it to be repeated. So you have to be careful. Shlomo Melech is reminding us in this pasuk that many people have a hard time keeping a secret. So even if you tell the individual this is a secret, don't give it over, don't talk about it, don't say it to anybody else. It would be better that you not tell it to him unless he's a very, very trusted friend, unless you know for sure that he will not talk about it with someone else, because people have a hard time controlling themselves. Some people love to talk, some people don't mind revealing things, and it's not permissible to reveal information of a friend that information of the type that the friend does not want to be revealed. Just like you're not allowed to open up somebody's letter in a sealed envelope. It's none of our business, right? It's addressed to a certain individual. He may not want you to open the letter. So not everybody will want us to know of some secret that they have, or some information that they don't want to be divulged. So therefore he says, don't mingle with them. Why not mingle? What does mingling have to do? Because when one mingles, one talks, and one may say something that he did not intend to say. So around these individuals who are big talkers, watch yourself a little bit better. Next pasuk, Mekalel aviv imo yid'ach nero b'yishon choshech. If one curses his father or mother, chas v'shalom, here he translates his lamp or his candle will flicker in the blackest darkness. Now this is a little difficult to understand. What is he talking about? His candle or his lamp will flicker. As you know, to curse is very, very bad. It's a terrible sin, and especially one's father and mother. What does that have to do with his candle will flicker in the darkness? The rabbis tell us that avera mechaba mitzvah. The sin has the power, depending on which sin, to extinguish a mitzvah. A person may have performed certain mitzvot. He feels very happy about himself, he's proud. But immediately he comes home after performing the mitzvah and he has a whole big fight with his wife. What has just happened? The Yetzer Hara is jealous of an individual performing a big mitzvah. He wants to grab away that mitzvah, grab away all that credit. And he somehow looks for a way to bring this man down. And he stirs up an argument at home, which brings out cursing or yelling, anger. And that takes away his mitzvah. That extinguishes the mitzvah. Mitzvah mechaba avera, and avera mechaba mitzvah. So here he's giving the example of avera mechaba mitzvah, that some sins have the power to extinguish the mitzvah. And in the case of Mekalel Aviv Ve'imo, his candle or his lamp will flicker in the choshech. What choshech? When he will be in a dark place, when he will be in a etzara, in a time of difficulty, that ner, ki ner mitzvah v'torah or, as we've explained in the past, that ner, that light of his mitzvot that he performed, that usually will protect him during the time of trouble, they will no longer have the power. Those mitzvot will not have the power to protect him during the choshech. They will not be lit. They will flicker. So this is an example of Mekalel Aviv Ve'imo. If he committed such a terrible sin, then any mitzvah that he may have performed would not have the light or the strength to protect him b'ishon choshech, when he's in a time of trouble. Shlomo Melech is warning us of the effects of some terrible sins that we're not even talking about the punishment in Olam Haba. We're talking about the circumstances in Olam Hazeh, that he will suffer the consequences as a result of these sins, that even if he had performed mitzvot, the mitzvot would not help him. That is the meaning of his candle, the light of the mitzvot, that the light that is supposed to be protecting him will not help him. Next pasuk, Nachala mevohelet barishona v'achrita lo tevorach. An inheritance may be acquired hastily in the beginning, but in its end will not be blessed. The commentaries say any money that comes to one quickly is easily lost. And that is a fact, that which one receives by inheritance does not necessarily remain with one forever, for many years. Because it's by inheritance, it's not part of his masal, it was not a blessing by a tzaddik, it was through inheritance. It may be his, he got it from his father, from an uncle, but because it was through inheritance, it does not have the same strength of remaining with him for too long. It came to him quickly. And why not? What's the problem with that? Why shouldn't an inheritance, or why shouldn't money that came to one quickly stay with one? There are various explanations. One is that the money that one receives quickly, especially if he had none before, he's careless about it. He's so happy, excited, and he starts misusing the money. It could also be that once a person receives a lot of money, everybody wants to become his friend, and before you know it, all the money is wasted. But according to other commentaries, any money that comes to one very quickly, not having worked hard for it, the eye can influence it, the evil eye, the ayn hara, can influence it and can hurt it, and therefore can affect that individual. Because all of a sudden people see that he has made all this money, that he's received all this money, and somehow that money has no blessing and does not remain with him. That's one interpretation of this pasuk, that nachala mevohelet barishona, a nachala, an inheritance which has come quickly to one. In the end, it's not blessed because it came hastily to him. Another interpretation of this pasuk is that it's not talking necessarily about an inheritance, but any money that is earned quickly in a way that was not kosher 100%. That kind of money too will not have a good ending. In the end, it will not remain with him. It was not earned the hard way, then it's not blessed. Just like money that's earned on Shabbat has no beracha. So at first, one has it, he sees the cash. Barishona, nachala mevohelet barishona, at first he has it, but v'harita, in the end, it is not blessed. So therefore, somehow, that money will go to waste, either for attorney fees or something that was unexpected, because it's not blessed. Next pasuk. Al tomar shalemara kavel avnai v'yoshalach. Do not say, I will repay evil. Instead, have your hopes in Hashem, and He will save you. An individual may be tempted to take revenge. Somebody hurt him. Somebody may continue to hurt him. Other people may take advantage of him. And he might say, you know what? I'm going to pay back. I'm going to get even. Don't do that. Now we know from the Torah, lo tikom v'lo titor. That's the Torah prohibits taking revenge or even bearing a grudge. But here, Shlomo Melech is adding something else, some additional information, more details. You know why you don't have to take revenge? If you're still concerned about the future, about the individual doing the same thing to you again, just be hopeful. Pray to Hashem and He will help you. In other words, the right attitude is not to think that you can eliminate the threat by repaying the individual, by getting back at him. That's not the way to stop the threat. That's not the way to get even. Now, of course, if somebody is threatening, you're allowed to do anything you can to defend yourself. But what should not be done is to get even. In other words, to do the exact same thing that the individual did to you.
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth?
That's damages. In other words, if somebody took somebody's eye out, you estimate what the value of that eye is, the value of the tooth, the value of the leg, and he owes him for the damages. It doesn't mean that we do to him what they do in Saudi Arabia. You cut his arm, you chop off his arm. You took his eye, you take out his eye. That's Saudi Arabia maybe, but not in Jewish law. In Jewish law, one can never give back the same that the individual gave him. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say Reuven murdered Shimon. Okay? Now Shimon has a wife and 7 children. Comes along a relative of Shimon and says, I'm going to take revenge from Reuven. Why? Because Reuven murdered, so he should be murdered. The problem is Reuven has no wife and has no 7 children. Would the revenge be the same? Would it be equal? It would never be the same. Right? You can never take the exact revenge. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly how much to give to every individual, depending on the circumstances. So the right attitude over here is Kavel Hashem, just hope in Hashem, and He will help you. You may not necessarily be able to help yourself.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the quick cash.
Yeah.
How about if someone receives a gift from an aunt or an uncle?
Right.
And it's not an inheritance per se, but it is cash given to you.
Okay.
But let's say that you need that money and you need to use it and you don't have any money.
No, we never said that there was anything wrong to receive a gift or an inheritance. He's just stating a fact. That easy come, easy goes. That's all. He's just stating a fact.
Somebody?
Yes, it may be. In other words, it may just be that unless you're blessed, unless you're very careful, unless you pay attention to what he's saying, you may misuse it. You may just, instead of saying, oh, Baruch Hashem, I just received a gift of $25,000, let me put it away for a rainy day. You know, you may not think that way. You may say, oh, great. If I got this today, I'm going to get that kind of money tomorrow too. Let's splurge. So it's a problem with the attitude many times.
Is that subject to 10%? Like even if you get a gift, it is, right?
Sure. Anything that's cash.
Money given to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the IRS that even if you got the value, of something, you have to give 10% of that too.
Sure.
It all depends on the situation, what you got, and how you received it. So here we're talking about the attitude. It's important to have complete trust in Hashem. He will talk a little bit about it soon. How things happen in the world are not completely in our control. And therefore, when one takes revenge, he's basically saying, I'm in control. What happened to me, I can handle that. No, that's not the right attitude. Another pirush, another interpretation of this pasuk of Al Tomar Shalema Ra. Shalema means lashlim, to complete. One may be failing, one may be weak, and already in the midst of committing a sin, and he says, you know what, I'm already in the midst of it, I have no choice, en librera, Shalema Ra, I'll just complete what I'm doing. Don't do that. Kavel Hashem v'yoshalach. Always pray to Hashem that He should get you out of this trouble, get you out of this problem, even though you're already in the midst of it. One may think he's already stuck, he might as well just go ahead and do it. No, don't think that way. Always pray to Hashem that He should bring you out of whatever trouble you're in. And don't give up hope. just because you're stuck, that's it. You should just leave yourself where you are. The proper thing to do is to pray to Hashem. Next pasuk is a very significant pasuk. It appears to be a repetition of something that he said before, but it's not. To'avat Adonai even va'aven u'moznei mirma lo tov. Diverse weights are an abomination of Hashem. Hashem hates those who use diverse weights. We explained it in the past. It's something that's mentioned and stressed in the Torah, that one has to be careful with his weights and measures. Not to use a big stone and a small stone, to cheat people. Moznei mirma lo tov, and deceptive scales are not good. We know that. We said that in the past, that Hashem hates those people who are dishonest, who use different measures to cheat in their business. So what is he adding over here? The connection between this pasuk and the previous pasuk is pretty obvious. In the previous pasuk we spoke about people who are no good, who may have done us some harm, who may have cheated us, and we were tempted to pay back, to get even. That is why he brings this pasuk and says, To'avat Hashem even v'aven. Hashem hates those people who are not consistent. They behave one way with some people and one way with other people. In other words, here we're not necessarily talking about weights and measures that, as we did in the past. Here we're talking about different standards with different people. In other words, I'm usually honest, but with that individual, he's always dishonest with me. I'm going to be dishonest with him. I'm going to cheat him because he cheated me, but I'm always honest. That's what he says over here. To'avat Hashem even even. One has to be consistent, always honest, and not say, no, but with him it's okay, because he owes me the money anyway. He was dishonest with me, so I'm going to be dishonest with him. I'm going to cheat him. That is not right. In other words, one should be consistent with everybody, not show favoritism to one individual, not to behave one way with one individual and another way with someone else, but to be consistent with everybody. I mean, you can be more friendly to certain people, and you can go out of your way for others. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is to do something which is not right. Either you're honest always, either you always say the truth. You can't say, no, I always say the truth, but in this case I will say a lie. That's a form of even and even, two standards. And now we have come to a very important pasuk. Don't get me wrong, all the pasukim here are important, but there are some that are of great importance because they should influence our hashkafa, our outlook, our perspective in life, very, very much so. But all of this is good advice. It's very useful. But the following pasuk is an example of something that if we don't fully believe in it, then we're not living according to the proper hashkafa of the Torah. Me'adonai mitzadei gaver ve'adam ma'yavin darko. A man's steps are from Hashem, and man does not understand nothing of his ways. In other words, Hashem is the one that leads an individual to control where he's headed. One thinks that he gets on a bus, drives his car on a certain street, on a certain road, on a certain freeway, because that was his choice. That's not so. Hashem ultimately put that choice in his mind, or allowed him to go ahead with his choice. Either way, Hashem is in control of where a person is headed, where he's going, physically, not spiritually. Spiritually, the rabbis tell us, whichever way a person wants to go, they allow him to go there. What does that mean? That's in the spiritual sense. A person wants to be a rasha, they won't stop him. That's the way he chooses for himself. Here we're talking about in the physical. A person wants to go to Kansas, and if that does not contradict Hashem's plan, Hashem, of course, will take him there. He didn't think of going there, but he needs to be there, then Hashem will somehow bring him to go there. Somehow he's going to get there if he needs to be there. When it comes to physical locations, physical destinations, Hashem takes us where we need to be. So me Hashem mitzadei gaver, we are the ones that make somehow the decision to take the first step to get on the, okay, we thought about it, but as far as what the consequences will be, whether we will succeed in going there, whether we will get to where we intended to get, all of that depends on what Hashem's ultimate plan is. And after all is said and done, Adam ma yavin darko. What does one understand of his ways? In other words, Adam ma yavin. He cannot sometimes figure out, why did I go there and why didn't I go there? Very important point, because we don't realize that everything is min hashamayim, that everything is controlled from above. And this includes delays, all sorts of delays. You wanted to go somewhere, I don't know, you wanted to go to China, and the Chinese embassy did not want to give you a visa. For some reason, they picked on you. You don't understand why. 3-4 months later, they finally gave you a visa. Just chose an example. Why? Why did this happen? Adam ma yavin darko. We may never be able to figure this one out. We may never be able to figure it out. But one thing is for sure, Hashem mitzadei gaver. But it is from Hashem. It's not only from Hashem the destination, but it's definitely from Hashem the consequences. Whether we will succeed in going where we plan to go, whether there will be a delay, what will happen, that's all min hashamayim. Everything is min hashamayim, almost everything, except for yirat shamayim. In other words, if one behaves himself or not, if one does the right thing or not, that's obviously up to us, otherwise there wouldn't be free will. Free will is only in the area of spirituality. If one performs a mitzvah or one commits an avirah. And there's one other small area that is free will. If you catch a cold or a flu, dress well, eat the right things, don't smoke, and you won't be hurting yourself. You can't blame Hashem, it's from you. You're the one that caused me to become ill. No, if you read the Rambam says it very clearly, that just about all the diseases stem or come from what one eats. If one watches himself, and of course it helps if you have good genes too, and you breathe clean air, all of that is very helpful. Then there's no reason why one should not be healthy and never be sick. So obviously some things are in our control, but for the most part, destiny is not completely in our hand. Who we marry, usually, is what Hashem has in mind, depending on who is one's soulmate. And only Hashem knows that. Not even the matchmakers know. So what are matchmakers for? They're just shalichim. They're just messengers to bring two people together. Somebody might mention something, and it could be Hashem used him as a tool to bring two people together. They may meet on their own, they may meet through a third person, they may meet through a friend, but in the end Hashem is the one that put them together. That's another mitzadei gaver. That's one of the ways that people take. Marriage is a way. Business is also a way. In other words, it's not just a destination, it's just about every aspect of our life is min hashamayim. A lot of people who are observant do not fully believe in this. If you ask them, or if you tell them, they'll say, of course, but they don't demonstrate that in their life. When one is worried about something, when one feels terrible about something that happened to him, it's in some ways proof that he doesn't believe that something that just happened to him is min hashamayim. Instead of examining why it happened, perhaps, which is okay, they ask, why did it need to be this way? It needed to be this way because Hashem wanted it to be this way. Otherwise, it's very difficult to figure it out. Adam ma yavin darko. The rabbis do tell us, however, that if something bad happens, one has to examine his deeds because he may be responsible for certain things that happen to him. In other words, things that are not so good, like illness, like pain and suffering that may come about as a result of an atonement for some action. That one should examine. But otherwise, things are not completely under our control. Commentaries explain that a person may intend to make a profit in something. He intended to buy something and sell it for a profit. In the end, it turned out that he had a big loss. Why? Hashem mitzadei gaver. We don't know. Adam ma yavin darko. I once explained, I think even the Zohar brings it down, I'm not sure. We say in the Amidah, Gomel chasadim tovim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very kind, and He does with us acts of good kindness. Have you ever heard of a kindness that is not good? What does it mean, chasadim tovim? Gomel chasadim tovim, good kindness. The explanation is as follows. We know that everything Hashem does with us is kindness. It's for our good, it's for our benefit, but we don't always see it. We don't always understand it that way. So what we say in the Amidah is Govel Chasadim Tovim, that we should see one day, Hashem should allow us, open up our eyes, so that we should be able to observe that what happened to us was in fact kindness. We don't always see it. We're supposed to just believe it. That this was meant for our good, for our benefit. But that it is really good and beneficial, we don't always see. We pray to Hashem that He should allow us to see, in the end, how come it was meant for our good. Sometimes we're lucky. Sometimes we realize after a couple of weeks or months or years, now I understand what happened. Now I understand why things took so long, why they came out the way they were. Now I understand. But not always do people see it, because it could be many, many years later when something is finally revealed, when something finally becomes clear. And there's so many examples that I'm sure everyone here can think of something that at first he didn't understand, or he felt that was no good. In the end, it turned out to be good. We go through life sometimes with a bad feeling about something. And life is short, 60, 70, 80 years. It's not long enough to sometimes see what the results are. The results could be only in the children, in the future generation. Am Yisrael right now is going through difficult times. We've been in Galut for almost 2,000 years. And we may not be able to figure out a lot of things. When Mashiach comes, we will be able to figure out everything, because our eyes will open up. We will see the long video that's stretched for over 5,000 years, and we will see all the segments, how they come together, how Hashem knits everything together. But we're only in the middle of the movie. We can't figure everything out. But everything is for the good. Everything is Be'ashgacha Elyona. Everything is with divine providence. Zohar says, and the Gemara also says, that Ragloi debar inash inun arvin le. The feet of one are his guarantors. Wherever the feet need to be, they will take him there. One's feet are guaranteeing for him that they will take him wherever they need to be. You just don't get up and you go somewhere out of the blue. It's because somehow that's part of the divine plan, that one end up where he's going. Or where he's going does not conflict with Hashem's plan. Then Hashem will allow him to go. If where a person is about to go will conflict with Hashem's plan, Hashem won't let him go. He will stop him. Because one's feet are guarantee, are his guarantors, his arev. Wherever they need to be, they're going to take him. You need to be in LA, you're going to come to LA. You need to be in New York, you're going to go to New York. You need to be in Israel, you're going to go to Israel. One's feet will take him. One thinks that it's his idea, but it's not always his idea. It's usually Be'ashgacha Elyona, through divine plan, for him to pick himself up and go, and very possibly meet his bashert, his soulmate. Two people can decide on going on the same cruise. One is from New Zealand and one is from Belgium. And they meet in South Africa. How do they think about the same thing? Who made them meet? Of course, Hashem. It didn't just happen by chance. So this is a very important pasuk. Hashem mitzadei gaver, everything that happens for the most part is from Hashem, but here he points out mitzadei, one's footsteps, not necessarily one's parnasah, which we already know is from Hashem, and so forth, but one's footsteps, wherever a person is headed, wherever he goes, wherever he needs to be, that's min hashamayim. But Adam Ma'avin, we don't always understand why we do certain things, so how come they turned out to be the way they did. Next pasuk, Mukesh Adam Yala Kodesh V'had Nedarim Levaker. When a man is trapped, he impairs his sanctity. Alright. And he must seek vows. It's a little difficult if we use the English translation. Let me tell it to you in simple words. Mukesh Adam Yala Kodesh, even though we just said that everything is min hashamayim in the previous pasuk, there are things that people do to hurt themselves, to impair their sanctity, in other words, their neshama. There are certain avirot, in other words, sins that a person does that basically destroy him. V'har nedarim levaker, and therefore he must seek nedarim. What are nedarim? Vows. He must seek promises to bring a sacrifice in the days when we had a Beit HaMikdash, to be able to atone for what he just did. In other words, the simple meaning of this pasuk is, yes, everything is in the hands of Hashem, but there are certain things that are mokesh adam, that he is trapped, or that he falls as a result of his own sins, and therefore he has to repair them. He's responsible for them. That is one interpretation. Another interpretation of this pasuk is that there are various situations where a person loses control. He has certain desires, and he has a very difficult time controlling himself. They are mokesh, he's trapped in them. What should he do about it? How should he release himself from the trap? Achar nedarim levaker. He may need a neder. Rabbis very much discourage making nedarim, promises, because you may forget about them, you may have a hard time keeping them, and it's a big sin if somebody makes a neder and doesn't keep it. But sometimes mutar lindor, especially if it's a neder for a mitzvah, if it's a good thing. A person has a hard problem with smoking on Shabbat. Smoking, he's addicted. 2 packs a day, comes Shabbat, he has a hard time. What should he do? Now, I'm not recommending that he should make a neder yet. Obviously he should slow down. But this may be necessary sometimes, to make a neder, to hold himself back, if that's what will help him. And a person has to know himself. I know people who one way of stopping was, if they smoke another cigarette, every cigarette, $100 in the tzedakah. That's going to become expensive. That's going to become expensive for them, for every time that they're creating a situation of a knas, of a fine against themselves, an expensive fine, which will hold them back from committing this sin, or from smoking, whatever it is. So that's another interpretation of mokesh adam yala kodesh. If he sees that he's trapping himself, how to get out of it, har nedarim levaker, is to make a neder. Another interpretation is just the opposite. Instead of making a neder, if one sees that terrible things are happening to him, that he's in a mokesh of some sort, he should examine himself. Perhaps he's made a neder and he hasn't paid it yet. If one has made a neder and more than a year went by with not paying it, that can get him into deep trouble. So that's another interpretation. Ahar nedarim levaker, examine one's deeds to see if there are any nedarim that he's made that he has not fulfilled. Mokesh adam. Mokesh adam could also be somebody getting hurt physically. Rabbis tell us in the Gemara, "En adam nokefetz ba'om melemata elam ki machrizim alav melemala." Also a very, very important rule in hashgacha, that a person doesn't hurt his finger downstairs. Nothing happens downstairs unless it's so announced upstairs. You know how sometimes you trip, you're walking on the sidewalk, you trip, or you hurt your finger, somebody slammed the door on your finger, or you tripped, you slipped, something happened, somebody poured hot water on you, or you poured it on yourself, you just burnt your finger because you were making some tortillas, or whatever. There's all sorts of examples of where you can get hurt. You think that's just an accident? En adam nokefetz ba'om, nothing happens, not even a finger is moved, not even a finger is hurt, unless it's so decreed upstairs. Why? So I think it's Rabbi Elazar that says, or Rabbi Eliezer, that the dam of the nekifa, the little blood that a person has from an injury, is like the dam of an olah, of a korban olah. In other words, today we don't have the korbanot, but this is a way of atonement. This is a kapara. It's a small kapara for something apparently small. Something big, it's a big kapara, depending on what happened. There could be a kapara with money, there could be a kapara with a physical injury, with an illness, as we will see towards the end. All pain and suffering is a form of kapara. But here we're not talking about the kapara yet, I'm just talking about the point that it's omen hashamayim. That if somebody got hurt, even if his little pinky got hurt, that's omen hashamayim. Next pasuk, Mezare reshaim melech chacham v'yashiv alehem ofan. Also a very difficult pasuk to understand. The translation is, A wise king scatters the wicked and turns the wheel over them. The simple meaning is that a wise king, in order to maintain control over those who are troublemakers, over the Reshaim, he has to scatter them so that they should not be together and plan against him. Vayashev aleim ofan, and he puts a wheel over them. In other words, that's another expression of controlling them. A wise king does something intelligent in order to maintain control over his kingdom and to keep the troublemakers away. Why does he say that? We will see soon in the next pasuk. The next pasuk talks about Hashem, that Hashem does not have to exert that kind of control for another reason. But before we get to that pasuk, another interpretation of this pasuk is that the Melech that we're talking about here is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the way he handles Reshaim is Vayashev alehem ofan. He puts a wheel over them. What wheel are we talking about? The wheel of midah keneged midah, a measure for measure. The way HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets back, or the way the HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with Reshaim, is by punishing them midah keneged midah. And the Midrash or the commentaries bring over here the example of Paro. What he did, that's what we're actually reading about in this Parshiot. What Paro did to Am Yisrael, the punishments that he got, that he received, were all midah keneged midah. They were not just random. They were all measure for measure. That's the way Hashem deals with Reshaim, to control them, to subdue them, is Vayashev aleim ofan. He puts a wheel, the wheel of midah keneged midah. Everything comes around at you. That's the other meaning here. But that leads us to the next pasuk, a very, very interesting pasuk that the Kabbalists go a little bit more into detail. But before we get into the Kabbalah, I'm just going to say the simple interpretation. Ner Adonai nishmat adam chofes kol hadri baten. Man's soul, the neshama of a person, is the candle of Hashem, which searches out all the innermost parts. Simple meaning is that the neshama is something separate from the physical body. That neshama is like the lamp of Hashem, illuminating the whole body, giving life to the whole body, allowing man to think and to basically function. That is the neshama. The neshama is the captain of the ship. You remove that neshama and this flesh, and the brains, no matter whose brains you have, cannot do anything on their own. So the Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, it's the light of Hashem. Chofes kol chad verevaten, that it illuminates the entire body. What does illuminating have to do with anything? So the commentators explain, the neshama itself is the one that will testify upstairs after it passes away from this world to all that it has done, because the neshama knows very well kol hadrevat and what it has done. In other words, the innermost part of the body, the thoughts, the feelings, nobody knows except for Hashem, obviously, and the neshama. The neshama is therefore the one that will give testimony upstairs to everything that it has done, because that lamp, that ner of Hashem, chofes kol hadrevat, it's able to search and to examine, to know everything that the body has done. Another idea expressed over here is that Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, the candle of Hashem, is a part of Hashem. The neshama is a chelek eloka mima'al. It is a part of Hashem that He has given us, and that is why it's called Ner Hashem. Ner meaning a light. A light, always the flame is facing upwards, because that's where the neshama is from. The body is from down below. The neshama is from above. So when a person passes away, that portion that the parents gave their child goes back to the ground from where it came from. V'aruach tashuv el Elokim, as Kohelet says, and the spirit goes back to Hashem from where it came from.
I saw trading out from lawyers on the office that a behemoth's head looks down,
right.
a Allah's head looks up,
right.
A human being looks straight ahead, but the person has a choice of looking up or looking down.
Oh, looking down, very nice, yeah, sure. Because the animal is completely from below, whereas the human being has half animal and half neshama, which is from above. And he has the choice to be an animal or to be more like an angel. But according to the Kabbalah, what Shlomo Melech is hinting to over here is that the neshama of an individual is like a light. What are the qualities of a light, of a candle? You take one candle and you can light 1,000 other candles with the original candle. Have you diminished the original candle? No. You still have the original flame, but you could light many others. What's the significance of that? It's very significant because that describes the essence of a neshama, how it could split itself into many sparks, into nitzotzot. And that touches on the subject of reincarnation. Then when a neshama is reincarnated and comes back a second or third or fourth or fifth time, not the whole neshama necessarily comes down, just a portion, a part of it. The neshama can split itself into various sparks, and only the spark that needs to be rectified comes down, not the whole neshama needs to come down. Then the question arises, well, when Tchiyat HaMetim comes, how is it going to be? All the bodies will rise. Where is the neshama going to be? The neshama will be exactly where it was in every one of those bodies. As long as those bodies are good, they will rise. And it would be okay for the neshama to have split itself, except for the nefesh. The nefesh, which is another aspect of the human spirit, I think the Kabbalah says Hashem will give each body a new nefesh. That's what makes the heart pump. But the neshama, it will be, and how will they all be? It will be like brothers. Each one will recognize, oh, you're my other half. You're my this. It's all the same neshama, different physical bodies. They will look different, but they will share. In other words, a neshama can be shared. And that is very, very true when it comes to the male and female union in true zivugim from the same sholish neshama. That in fact the neshama is really part female, part male. And if they're fortunate, Hashem brings those two halves together and they have a wonderful marriage.
Where does the consciousness go? You say, where's your your memories,
That's the neshama.
I know, but if it splits, does your memory split to this one and that one? And you understand what I'm saying? You said
it's retained. The conscious, everything is retained.
But you remember who you are?
Upstairs, you know who you are. When you come down again in a physical body, you don't remember unless they hypnotize you. It's through hypnosis, sometimes it's possible to regress back and remember who you were. Yeah. Otherwise, there are a few clues as to why you're here and what you need to accomplish. You have some clues, but to know clearly, no, that's not possible to know clearly, unless you use Kabbalah or other means to be able to figure it out. But it's not a problem. The neshama, that portion of the neshama, retains its consciousness. All right, we have a couple more pesukim here. Chesed be'emet yitzru melech v'sa'ad b'chesed kis'o. Kindness and truth preserve the king, and he supports his throne with kindness. Here he's talking about the longevity or the success of a king and his kingdom depends on him being truthful and being kind. In other words, a king or a kingdom will be able to be preserved if there is truth and kindness, not corruption, not lack of justice, not cruelty. Either people will support him or people will be against him. It's an interesting point because if you want to figure out why did Spain, the Spanish Empire, the English Empire, the British Empire, all the empires in the world did not last too long. At some point, they were lacking something to preserve them. And what is that? I don't think they were too kind, and I don't think they definitely supported truth. So there was no way for those to succeed for too long. In the end, that's why all the kingdoms and all the empires will collapse, will fall down, and the truth will prevail. In other words, when Mashiach comes. Everything else is sheker. Everything else is false. Therefore, en lo raglayim, it cannot last long. To preserve one's kingdom, a king needs to be kind and truthful. Tiferet bachorim kocham v'adar zakenim seva. The glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of elders is a hoary head, a head full of hair. What he's talking about over here is that even though a person is old, he still has one great advantage: his experience and his wisdom. And that experience and wisdom is like the strength of the young. The young have the strength, and that's valuable. But so is the wisdom of the elder. As long as they have wisdom and experience, then that's valuable too. That is why we give kavod, respect, to those who are older than us, especially to those who are the elderly, because they have chokhmah, assuming that they have chokhmah. We're giving respect not to the age, but to the chokhmah and the wisdom that they have. That's a big advantage, a big plus. That's something to look up to and admire. Haburot petzat tamruk bara'u makot chadreibat, and that's the last pasuk of the perek. Contusions and wounds come for outpouring in evil and plagues in the innermost parts. Two interpretations of this pasuk. One is, whoever pursues, tamruk like memarek or memaher, he who pursues quickly to do sins, in the end he will be afflicted by all sorts of plagues in his innermost parts. But the other interpretation, the more common interpretation of this pasuk, is that he's talking about pain and suffering that I mentioned earlier. Anytime one has contusions or wounds, it has to do with evil, it has to do with some sin, it has to do with tamruk, bera, it has to do with an atonement for something that he has done. One should examine himself, therefore, if he sees something happening to himself, something afflicting him, and remember that this is all a kapara, and this is a way that Hashem intends for the heart to open up and to become awakened, as to that it needs to do something. This is compared to a signal in one's car, check engine. Well, what do you do when you see the check engine light up? You better look into it. Or brake. It could be a major part that needs to be replaced, and if it's not replaced, one can get into an accident. The body also has signals. Chest pains, it's a favor for one. Go check it out. Maybe you need some nitroglycerin, right? Maybe there's some clogs, some arteries that are clogged. Hashem puts signals in the physical body. You have a headache, that's also a form of signal. Something, the body is in pain. It needs something. It may need sleep, not coffee. It just may need sleep. So therefore, the neshama has a way of signaling to the individual that something is wrong. But the problem is we don't listen to the neshama always. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes has to intensify the signals from the outside by bringing about something to awaken us, like an alarm clock. We don't have to wait for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for the shofar to sound to awaken those who are asleep. Every day, right before a person goes to sleep, he should examine himself before the trouble comes. Because when the trouble begins to come and all the afflictions, that's already a little bit late. It's still not too late. The person has to be sensitive.